So at the start of my academic year this year, my professor, Melissa Stain, she handed out a sheet of paper, and printed on this paper was a puzzle. So it kind of looked something like this. And she asked us to, in each puzzle piece, fill in an identity dimension of ours. Right? So in each puzzle piece to fill in an identity dimension. She gave us 5 minutes to do it. And this was essentially my puzzle piece that I created. And it was a really fantastic exercise because you start realizing how deep one's identity goes, right? How deep it goes, how broad it is, and really how it impacts and interconnects into this whole complete puzzle that is you as an individual. What I loved about this exercise are two things that I'd like to share. The first one is that identity is not singular. We don't have one identity. Identity is plural. We have many, many, many identities, and that's really important to understand. The second thing, which I think is most important, is that we essentially choose which identities to prioritize at different moments in time and in our lives. And that is totally rational as a behavior. That we have all of these identities, but we choose to prioritize certain ones at certain times given the specific context. Now, for those of you who are parents currently in lockdown at the moment, you know this, that your identity as a parent and your identity as an employee or business owner, you are going to choose to prioritize those identities at any given point. And it's so important to understand that that is a totally human and rational thing to do. That not all of our identities are always going to be privileged. That not all of our identities are always going to be something that we prioritize. What's more interesting are the identity dimensions that we choose to deprioritize all the time. Because remember, we have been told which identities to prioritize and deprioritized based on certain rewards and punishments we see for certain identities. So I know for me, as a queer gay man, that when I go home and when I go to family functions, I'm going to deprioritize my queer identity, because I know that in that contextual setting, it is not one that is rewarded. In fact, it's one that's looked down on. So in those specific contexts, Christmas lunch or whatever it is, I'm going to deprioritize that identity of mine. And that is such a rational behavior, that is such a rational thing to do. And that in certain moments, we're all going to do that. And that doesn't diminish or make us feel or be any less authentic. It's really a critique of our society, of how we've been taught which identities to prioritize and which to not, which I think is a whole video in and of itself, thinking and critiquing and challenging the idea of the authentic self and bringing your whole self to work.